rounds on Freshly Pressed on the Smooth Breakfast right here on Smooth 98.1. This is your Love Music, Love Live Station, 31 minutes past 7 a.m. And this is Ayokunmi here. It's going to be a great morning. Though it's been raining here in I can't say for the mainland, but it was raining here. Once again, the weather is going all over the place. As I said last week or thereabouts, when there was rain sometime in the morning, rain in December was not on my bingo card. I thought that was a one-off. Clearly, I was wrong. So prepare for a wet morning. Get yourselves all protected, your umbrellas, your raincoats, something hot to drink as well. You're definitely going to be needing all that today. Anyways, it's going to be the story, it's going to be analysis, and it's going to be your thoughts and contributions as well. So please get ready to send those messages in, those thoughts of yours on the stories we'll be talking about this morning. The WhatsApp number is live, up and running. 0911 0911 is the WhatsApp number. You can also join the live stream on YouTube. You can find us at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Smooth 981 FM Lagos. All right, joining me this morning to take you into the stories and give you some analysis. Two gentlemen in the studio, fine gentlemen. I must add, Mr. C and Chibuzor are with me this morning. Chibuzor, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Lagos. Good morning, Mr. C. It's second week of December, right?
Yes, it is.
No, third week.
Third week.
Already?
16.
16.
We're clocking in quickly. The dirty Decemberites are in town, obviously.
Quite clearly, all over the place. Mr. C, good morning to you.
Good morning, Aya. Good morning, Chibuzor. Good morning, Lagos. Good morning, virtual listeners.
All right. So, without further ado, let us begin this journey this morning. We're starting in the Punch and talking about one of the big stories that made the rounds yesterday, where it says the Supreme Court affirmed the constitutional power of the president to declare a state of emergency in any state to prevent a breakdown of law and order or a descent into chaos and anarchy. In a split decision of 6-1, the Apex Court upheld the president's authority under the Constitution to proclaim a state of emergency. The court further held that during such a period, the president may suspend elected officials provided any such suspension is for a limited duration. And this particular story, we've been waiting for a resolution to it. The suit was instituted by states governed by the PDP. They challenged the declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers by President Tinubu. Of course, we remember that Governor Fubara was suspended, legislature as well, and so on and so forth. Well, now the Supreme Court have spoken and said, yes, the president has such powers according to the Constitution. Now, the question is, how do we regulate and make sure that even if these powers are constitutionally allowed to be exercised, that they are not used in an anyhow manner? And I put that in quotes, Mr. C. Make some sense for us.
Okay, thank you, Aya. So this is a judgment that should have been delivered when the matter was hot. It has been delivered months after, and really time has been lost. And there's a maxim: justice delayed is justice denied. Now, for a while, I've had reservations about the quality of reporting in Nigerian newspapers, and this is just another episode. What the Supreme Court, so it was a split decision, 6-1. It was the full court of the Supreme Court that delivered judgment. That's 7 justices.
Right.
Now, all 7 of them agreed that, as per the provisions of Section 305, the president has the power to declare a state of emergency. The point of divergence was whether he can suspend democratically elected institutions. Now, the lead judgment was delivered by Mohammed Baba Idris, and he's the son of a former Chief Justice of Nigeria. Now, he held that Section 305 wasn't explicit enough, so the president had discretion in applying it. Now, I haven't read the full judgment, but I intend to read it. But even if that is true, even if what was reported is actually correct, the Senate has the power to provide or put in place the because the idea by the framers of the Constitution was to the effect that one, no arm of government is superior to the other. And for the benefit of the listeners, there are three arms of government. There's the executive, there's the legislature, there's the judiciary. They're all equals. Just like you have in the UK Parliament, they're all MPs. It's just that some of them are ministers in government, some are in the shadow government, but they're all equal members. Now, what does this hold in store for Nigerians? Yes, and before I answer that, the Supreme Court held that they lacked local standing to institute the matter. So it was first dismissed on the grounds of local standing, but they also went on to consider the merits of the case. Now, why didn't they have local standing? The person affected, Sim Fubara, did not appeal, did not complain. So it was other PDP governors at the time that complained. And the rule as regards to local standard in Nigeria, under Nigerian law, is that you have to show how the action you have complained of personally affects you. So PDP governors in Adamawa and Oyo State filing this suit, how did the suspension of democracy in River State affect the good people of Adamawa or the good people of Oyo State? It didn't affect them, to be honest. So I think even the way they framed the questions or the issues they put before the Supreme Court could have been done differently. But slowly and steadily, we're losing a lot of the guardrails that were built into our democracy. And I do hope Nigeria does not slide into a one-party state. I sincerely hope so. But the political class, the majority of them are wonderful bedfellows. They have no goals, no ideals, no values. And that is why they're jumping all over the place. And we can only hope and pray that things don't get even worse. But really and truly, this is scary because, in theory, a sitting president can contrive a crisis in a state where he's not friendly with the governor. He first contrives the crisis.
Which is why out how do we ensure that this power isn't exercised in that anyhow manner?
So we can only hope on the Senate, but this current version of the Senate, I'm not holding my breath out on them. I would also say we can only hope on the judiciary, but again, this version of the judiciary is not the best version the Nigerian people should have or deserve. So honestly speaking, in theory, both the Senate and the judiciary should be the ones to ensure that this power is not exercised recklessly or with impunity. But in reality, can Nigerians or the majority of Nigerians confidently beat their chest, raise up their right hands, and say that they are so sure that between the Senate and the judiciary, this power will not be exercised with impunity going forward?
I just want to chip in. I think, well, like Mr. C said, really, there's a reason why, you know, the president, when the drafters of the constitution actually allow for the president to be able to do that, and it was for the worst possible scenario where, we didn't want to have a descent into a crisis. But what we've seen, or what appears to have happened in the last few years, is that the president can choose selectively to apply those laws as he chooses to, irrespective of if the situations are more worrying than the other. Because when he came out, when he did the River State case, there was a lot of emphasis on the impact on Nigerians' earnings. But we've seen several other states in Nigeria, a lot of them half of the states, a chunk of the states are not being run by non-state actors. They're not allowed to control by the governors. They are controlled by people who are not elected or selected or put, people who have imposed themselves upon the citizens. And there has been no activity or no push by the government to declare states of emergencies in those states. Instead, what we hear is sound bites. We are going to deploy the army. We have a chunk of states for how many years now that have basically seen very little of governance apart from their governors parading the corridors of Abuja. But sorry, we have not seen the president actually exercise those powers. But and that's where the selectivity comes in. Like Mr. C said, the only guardrails based on our systems about the judiciary and the
Senate.
the Senate or the House of Assembly, between the Senate
Legislature.
and the legislature, basically. Sorry, go back to my secondary school government. And unfortunately, so far, I would boldly say that especially legislature have failed Nigerians. The judiciary has also paid their huge chunk in that. The legislature, especially this particular legislature, is the definition of a rubber stamp legislature. The last time when they were they were interviewing, I think it was the chief of the new minister for defense, and the Senate president came out and made a comment about how they were going to play it very seriously because the world was watching them, America was watching them. For me, it's you can't shame the shameless. That's where we are because you could boldly come out and make a comment that you are going to try to appear to be doing your job because another country was watching you over our so-called sovereign state. Then we need to have a rethink of, do we even understand what it means to be Nigerians?
That is a very big question. Hmm. Anyways, let's keep the energy here and go and move on to the next story. Before I do that, let me take this message from Benito. Benito is in Lagos, who says, "Good morning, crew. On the Supreme Court's judgment on the state of emergency, it shows one thing: on your mandate, the Supreme Court stands. Okay, smell no judgment. Well, just to say, I mean, they are working with the Constitution, right? So, I think at the end of the day, if we are to have a situation where this doesn't come up, does that then mean that the Constitution definitely, or those provisions need to be amended?"
So, to be honest, the entire constitution has to go. We have to replace it because our political elite have learned to game the system. And that constitution was never really a reflection of the will of the people. It was handed over to us by the military. The people must have a say in the laws that govern them.
Hmm.
So the entire constitution, in my opinion, has to go. Let's have a new constitution drafted by the people.
All right, let us keep on keeping on here. We're stepping into the premium time stream as well. Let's talk about Alaji Aliko Dangote. I don't know, for some reason we tend to talk about him whenever you are in the studio. I don't know if that's a coincidence or something, but anyways, the Premium Times is the paper the story is in, and it says the president and chief executive of Dangote Industries Limited, Aliko Dangote, has called for an investigation and prosecution of the chief executive officer of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, Farouk Ahmed, accusing him of economic sabotage, which he said is undermining domestic refining in Nigeria. Now, he was speaking at a press conference at the Dangote Petroleum Refinery on Sunday. Now, Alhaji Dangote accused the leadership of the NMDPRA of colluding with international traders and oil importers to frustrate local refining through the continued issuance of import licenses for petroleum products. He also made some very bold allegations stating that Mr. Ahmed was living beyond his legitimate means, claiming that four of his children attend secondary schools in Switzerland at the costs running into several millions of dollars. A lot of things were said, but I mean, these are weighty allegations being made against Mr. Farouk Ahmed here.
Okay. Interesting thing. I think Nigerians have probably heard a lot more from Alaji in the last 2 years, or I think 2 or 3 years, than we heard from him since we were kids. Because I think since we were kids, we had always heard about the myth called Dangote. The myth has become human the last few years, possibly because he's they say where your money is, your mouth is, and he's now in the sector. He's playing in a sector that is relatively new to him, where all the previous rules that he had in other sectors basically doesn't seem to be holding, and you have other entrenched players, both directly and indirectly, who are being fighting him back. Elijah has been pushing for several things. A lot of the things, some of the things he's been pushing for, I am not a supporter of, because he's been looking for some level of protectionism or for his investments. And I know that you can have arguments back and forth about why we should protect his investment, because very few people are doing that. Why shouldn't we protect his investment? Well, I think the Nigerian state has done the function of the Nigerian state, led by the government, is to provide an enabling environment. I think Elijah has been enabled a lot in getting this program, this refinery off the ground. I think several things obviously can be done better. I know that obviously we all know that he's probably putting a lot of investment, but that's besides the fact. So I think it was yesterday he came out and he had this meeting that at the end of it, I told a friend that the prayer of the Nigerian masses should be that our interests align with that of the Nigerian elite. That's when we'll probably get things moving forward in our own direction. For instance, Elijah has made some allegations against the man that, and before a lot of us had to go and check if you're not a player in that industry. And we found out that his allegations basically that this man is living beyond his means, that the amount of money this man is even spending on school fees is not what he himself would even spend as a billionaire, as a non-billionaire. He wouldn't be spending that amount of money, and that there needed to be a big investigation into it. Now, obviously, a lot of us were happy and joyful that somebody was calling out a corrupt person, and that's the state of we are in as a country. We do want to see people who are corrupt being held accountable.
Sure.
But I think later in the day, funny I think that was the last night before I went to bed. I was digging in, and I stumbled upon a story. This story actually broke sometime in July, where he was actually accused by some NGO, where that Mr. Farouk Ahmed was actually accused by some NGO about these claims that Alhaji Dangote had brought out were actually pushed forward by the NGO in July. And that NGO came out later to refute the story and to retract the story. Because I think the facts that came out, and a lot of people had done a lot of things. I had to dive into looking at how much school fees in Switzerland costs. But we found out that it's even some of the most expensive schools in Switzerland will not cost as much as Alhaji is claiming they would cost. So that's one point. But the second point was that the kids, according to the story and according to what the stories that came out after these allegations were made in July by the NGO, was that the kids had been in the school prior to Dr. Mr. Farouk being appointed, and they were supposedly on scholarship. And that I think the last one had actually exited the school before he became the boss of the regulator. So that's another story for another day. We can do a deeper dive into that. But what does it tell me? I think I want to focus on it. We are only hearing about this now, not because we do know, and we've heard of various people in public offices either being corrupted or corrupting their positions and utilizing it for personal gain. We rarely hear somebody who's in a position like Alhaji coming out to come and make those claims in public. The only reason why he's doing that now is because of he has his interests aligned with getting that person out of office, because he feels the person is a roadblock. And like I said, if our goals align with that of the elite, fine and good for us. But Nigeria also needs to be careful that we don't set ourselves up to become, we don't prompt our jobs to become another monopolist. If you have the best products at the best prices, at the best quality, then all good and fine. Nigerians will flock to you. I think he's announced that he's going to do his own version of Dirty December for Nigerians by offering his product at I think he says you have 10 best product. If I, as the consumer, and I know Mr. C and probably I will have the same position, if I drive a good time, get worried as I'm hearing stories like this, and hopefully at some point one or two people will be held accountable to their deeds and their acts.
Okay, so I think I like what Chibuzor said, but I have a slightly different position. Remember, the NNPC The federal government, through the NNPC, has a stake in that refinery, right?
Yep.
Now, the government keeps saying we can't do it alone. We want private sector involvement. We want the private sector to chip in. We want the private sector to drive things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a man has gone through considerable pain. Forget his personal character and some of his shenanigans. He's actually gone through a lot to have that refinery set up. Then some rascal bring in billions of liters of petrol regularly. So why then did he set it up? If you knew you were not going to support the man, why make him go through all that stress? Because you can't have private sector people investing, going through the hoops, going through all the challenges. Then some rascals, because they have access to corridors of power, then get licenses, no production costs, absolutely nothing, just flood the place with petrol. And you will discourage other investors who you're trying to pull in to other sectors of the economy. Because if you can do this to someone like that, the saying of the two wives comes into play. The cane or the hand that touches the first wife will still touch the second wife. It's only a matter of time.
Uh, well, so I have, like I said, I don't like the idea of protectionism. And for me, if you have a license and you can bring in products, there are two things for me, like it's quality and cost. If you're able to find some magic way to be able to sell same quality at limited and reduced costs, then we need to start asking ourselves questions on how we are able to achieve that.
Right, all right.
But and that's where the crux is, because tomorrow, if somebody else, and I understand you about keeping the market sane for whoever is going to invest, and that's what we need to do. The door needs to be open for whoever needs to come in later to invest, and you need to provide that level playing ground. Unfortunately, what we've seen in a lot of sectors is that our regulators really don't play that long time game. It's largely an open door, closed door, then go and sit down and watch as things pan out.
Unfortunately, so that is the sort of situation we find ourselves in. Well, the next story is an unfortunate situation as well, Mr. C. We'll take this from the Premium Times also. Airstrikes by the Nigerian Air Force targeting terrorist positions in Borno State have killed an unspecified number of civilians as at Sunday, that's the 14th of December. A security source disclosed to Premium Times saying the airstrikes were launched between 6 a.m. and 4 p.m. in the Maraba area in Kukawa local government of Borno State. This incident occurred a few hours after the Nigerian Air Force had actually vowed to protect civilians in its ongoing operations, which the United States actually supports. Another unfortunate incident, airstrikes killing fishermen and commercial drivers as well within that area. Such an unfortunate one once again.
Yes, it is, Ayo. And again, our thoughts go out to the families of those lost in this regrettable and needless incident. Now, we've consistently said on this show, right? There are proper ways of carrying out airstrikes. Nigeria is not the first nation to carry out airstrikes. How do they do it? Yes, we understand that from time to time there'll be civilian casualties. So when you look at US airstrikes in Afghanistan and Syria, you find that occasionally civilians will be unintended casualties. But then over there, they carry out investigations post incident to try and make things better. Now, in Nigeria, all the previous airstrikes that have impacted civilians, we were promised investigations, we were promised reviews. Have those investigations commenced? If they have they been concluded? If they've been concluded, where are the reports? Because the proper procedure is before an airstrike, you have to have boots on the ground who clearly mark out the strike area and confirm that the targets are on site.
Mm.
And if you don't get that confirmation, in my opinion, it might be premature at best, or even I dare say reckless to still carry out the strike. Now, notwithstanding all of this, we note that some elements of Boko Haram and ISWAP have merged themselves into civilian communities, and it's hard to distinguish from the air who's who. However, it goes back to what I'm saying. If you have boots on the ground, clearly Boko Haram won't live with civilians inside the same house, even for their own security, because they don't know who could possibly be an informant for the Nigerian government. So even within the community, they have places where they stay. So if you can't carry out a surgical airstrike, what happens to special forces operators? Because we've also been made to understand that the branches of the Nigerian military now have special forces divisions.
Mm.
So why not spend your spec op operators into those places, surgical attacks, neutralize the insurgents or the non-state actors, and we have peace. Now, if the loved ones of these people sue the government, what is the government's response? Especially when some of these people are actual breadwinners of their families. Because you've now plunged possibly families into more poverty. Now, I invite everyone to read the story because further in this story, there are areas where non state terrorist actors demand the sum of 40,000 naira for individual passes or licenses on a monthly basis to either fish or farm. And those monies are paid. Then for each carton of fish you bring out, you pay 5,000 naira. This is not happening outside Nigeria. This is happening inside Nigeria, in a state that has a governor, in a state that has a House of Assembly, in a state where the various arms of the military are represented. You have the Nigerian police force.
And there's no state of emergency.
Yeah, before you get to state of emergency, the Nigerian police force, who ordinarily should regulate internal law and order within the country, along with the DSS, are nowhere to be found. Individual Nigerians are being fleeced, are being extorted. They're nowhere to be found. Yet the police is determined to resume enforcement of tin permits. Can we be serious in this country for once?
So it's for me, it's all about what's the value of one Nigerian life, taken wrongly or taken rightly, or taken wrongly. What's the value of one Nigerian life? If you hear some of the amounts that are being called out, even if you look at our new tax laws that's supposed to be in effect from next year, these guys will not be paying the amounts of money they are paying out to non-state actors as whatever we're calling it, tax levies,
Indirect
amounts.
taxes, perhaps.
And yeah, that's happening in those areas. And that is a reflection of, how much, if we are not thinking about the impact of human lives, I think on the impact on development of the entire country. In fact, the fact that we're not able to do the right thing by those people, then what right do we have as a state to say, okay, hey, you guys, you need to fight and be part of Nigeria? Because it does not look like the Nigerian state is too interested in getting them back into the Nigerian state.
Well, Chibuzor is very correct. So, in addition to the eternal question of what is the value of a Nigerian life, I invite our listeners, everyone, to ponder what is the Nigerian dream? I'm assuming there is one. So, what is it?
I'll give you my version at the end of this. At the end of
And
this.
then, before we go, brilliant news for Data Squad and their supporters. Inflation again has declined to 14.45%, even though there's no evidence anywhere, but it has declined.
There's a target for single digit next year, so we're close.
So, it's
Slow
a,
and steady wins the race.
no, it has declined, but there's no evidence anywhere. Food for thought.
Well, I'm pretty sure that those who've been going to the markets can come and tell us the difference in prices of all sorts of commodities out there so that we have a good idea. But let me take messages because we need to wrap it up this morning. This is a message here from this is Jerry who says, good morning, Ayo, Mr. C and Chibuzor. We've always said that our problem in this country is mostly the judiciary. There's obviously no separation of power as we're taught even in secondary school anymore. Since the president has absolute powers, then let him switch the governor of Lagos State to Akwa Ibom. Mr. President, for God's sake, I thought you joined those who lost their lives to fight for this democracy. Why all these shenanigans for crying out loud? The president does not have absolute powers and he doesn't have the power to switch the governor of one state to another. I don't know if that was just being facetious, but let us set the right context, please. This is Joseph Menier in Silver State in Ejigbo, who says, "Good morning to gentlemen in the studio. It's just pathetic. Due respect to my mentor, Mr. C. The judiciary is gone beyond redemption. The arm is no longer independent but compromised. Supposed arm of government, which only came out during the tinted glass issue, but issues of insecurity, inflation, injustice is the business of the common Nigerians. And hope Dangote has fortified himself for the great battle for the oil sector, shenanigans, and cabals which are in the government." Mr. C, this issue of the Supreme Court affirming this particular situation, it's unpopular, yes, but it is within the ambit of the Constitution, correct?
No, it is so. It is within the ambit of the Constitution, and I did say I haven't read the full judgment. However, I'm surprised that they didn't make any reference to guardrails because it is clear that in some cases where the law is quiet or absent, the Supreme Court can actually drive legislation or drive the law. But again, when interesting times.
Hmm. Okay, this is Peter from Festac who says, "Tinubu did not fight for any democracy. That lie is old and stale." Well, we agree to disagree or disagree to agree. Tayo says, who dropped in inflation and help, I beg? Tinted permit by the police is coming back in 2026. Well, they've said uh, in January, I believe. Yes, January 2nd, 2026 is when the enforcement of the tinted glass permit will continue. I guess we know where the focus and the energies of our security forces, aka the police, actually lie. Interesting times and interesting days ahead of us.
Yeah, it's the way man's heart is that's the story of the police. I would not compare
Where man's treasures are, so there you find his heart.
Yeah, I don't want. I'm trying to avoid before I decide I said something, but that's what we see with the police. Really, they only come out for self-serving purposes. If it's not banga chasing, it's tinted glass chasing.
So they claim that there's been an upsurge and uptick in the number of crimes committed by occupants of tinted vehicles. Now, my response to them is a number of things can be true currently. The bandits who move all over the place, they're not even riding in cars, they're not hiding their faces. What has the Nigerian police done about that? Then, more importantly, do you intend to check the particulars of tinted vehicles that belong to the Nigerian Army, the Nigerian Navy, the Nigerian Air Force, the Customs Service, Immigration?
That's a good
Or
question.
is this a selective exercise?
I mean, what is good for the goose, as they say? All right, let me take this message here. This is from AB on YouTube. AB says, "The concern of the House of Assembly is that their police orderlies being redeployed is endangering their lives and their safety." Okay, everyone is fighting for
their own treasures.
And Peter says, "This tint. I hope that politicians will also pay for these permits." Well, your guess is as good as mine.
So the police, I don't want to, because the argument of the police is that you are checking for a permit to have it. So if the process for getting that permit is pretty straightforward. You go on the website, you pay some money, kaching, kachung. So if I drive, even if I have somebody kidnapped, once I bring out that permit, please go, guy, you're good to go. So it doesn't solve the root problem that they're talking about.
We need to wrap it up this morning. Thank you all for all the messages. It's been quite an interesting show on Freshly Pressed here on Smooth 98.1. Thank you so much, Chibuzor, and of course, Mr. C, for giving us legal context and analysis this morning, Chibuzor.
Thank you, Lagos. Let's get to the end of the year joyfully, and let's keep on hoping till the next year and hope for better things to come.
Yes, indeed, Mr. C.
Thank you, Ayo. Thank you, Chibuzor. Thank you, wonderful listeners. Let's close out the week and get ready for Christmas next week.
Yes, indeed. Christmas coming up on Thursday next week, a couple of days, and it's celebrations all around. Keep up with us on Smooth 98.1. The Smooth Breakfast, of course, is kicking on 8:15. Irabo Kosun will be joining me in the grapevine. And believe me, a number of things that we have to gist about this morning. My name is Ayokunmi. Stay with us.